So we're going to do a second episode with Kevin as well, talk specifically about what AI advertising is, how he's harvesting and mining this data out of these data lakes and through these structured data pools, and how we're being targeted for advertising on each and every device that we touch or use. I'd also encourage you to check out something, timeline.google.com. If you don't believe what's being said in these episodes, I challenge you to go over there, take a look, put in a date, any date in the last 10 years, and see the information that is stored on you. Every location you've ever been, the exact number of minutes and seconds you've been at those locations, how long you've been in your car versus how long you've been in the restaurant or at your home. When you have that data, you can compile it using AI with other data to determine who lives in a home, who they travel with, who they're influenced by, who influences their buying decisions. This is all incredible data that's available to us and should be used by you, because if you're not using it, your competitors are. All right, here we go. Episode 2 with Kevin Myers. All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Convergence. I've got Kevin Myers here with me again. We're going to do this part 2. Kevin Myers of AIAdvertising.com. Kevin, we were just talking about feelings and how important marketers' jobs is to cause an emotion that will require you to take action. And I love that you talked about it as interruption, because I do a lot of work in change management. So you mentioned the limbic system as well. I have an entire presentation about fight, flight, freeze, or feign. And I can show you when you announce change inside of an organization, there's a group that will fight. There's a group that will run away. There's a group that will just be frozen there waiting for a response. And there's a group there that will feign. And they will literally, that's like you're standing there, somebody has a gun in your face. You're like, you want my wallet? You want my keys? What do you want? Right? To try to get out of that situation. So our limbic responses are very ingrained. I mean, they are very, at a very biological level, we can't escape them. And marketers' job is to try to figure out how to take advantage of us. Kevin, I just realized you're the one out there taking advantage of us.
Yeah, and there's this diagram. It's called the Plotkin wheel of emotion, and you can see all of our emotive responses and how what is the opposite. Okay, so at its core, love and fear. One of them is going to be the primary driver, but there are derivatives of both. And so as marketers, we have to explore them all, because the same thing, Derrick, that we talked about that could shock me may not even kind of get your attention. And so that's where we've really got to kind of learn, what is it that people are giving off as their core emotive responses? Unfortunately, when it comes to political season, it's all fear-based. It's like, that's all they're driving is fear, fear, fear. That guy's the bad guy. That woman's the bad woman, and versus loving an issue. I sure would like to see that whole political climate change towards, how about we love what we're for instead of, beating up what we're against.
So true. I just feel like in the political climate, and I've been a libertarian for a long time, and not that I always follow libertarian philosophies, but I've always, I think I grew up really on the right. Now I'm a little bit more liberal, particularly in my social views. And one of the things that I have a great friend who's an executive in the pharmaceutical industry, and he always says, I'm the only person he's ever met that has no dogma whatsoever. Like, I don't mind changing my mind on something if I'm faced with the right information and data. And as somebody who doesn't usually vote for the right or the left, I tend to be really, I'm somebody who would vote for AOC and Karen Robeson in the same ticket. I'm one of those weird people that, depending upon how articulate, intelligent, I look at a lot of different factors. And it's really frustrating for me in the middle, because nobody ever tells me what they want to do or what they're going to do or what they stand for. All they do is talk about the other person and try to besmudge their character. And to me, I've tried to make it a point, not any candidate that does that, I refuse to vote for, which means many times I'm only voting for one person on an entire ballot because I can't find a single person to vote for.
Yeah, the candidate you found. Look, wouldn't it be, so Derrick, let's make a cause to change the political system forever, to either this lovely thought from Buddhism, the middle way. The middle way is, I am not here. I have my way of thinking. You have your way of thinking. I'm not here to pull you to my side. You don't pull me to your side. Together, we come up with something new and different. The middle.
Yeah.
There's the middle way.
That's great.
There's another kind of great way to think about this. And it goes back to these emotive feelings. You have to have the right people that will be drawn to that. David Mamet, the playwright, talks about if you're going to be in relationship and you're on either end of any issue, come up with one fact, a fact that you agree upon. Okay, you can have different points of view towards said fact, but if you can't come up with a single fact that you agree upon, you can't have discourse. So somewhere between the Mamet or the Buddhism or the the golden rule, this is where we endeavor to all go, and quite frankly, back to where you and I, that's what marketers and advertisers ought to figure out. Where is that emotive thing that talks to a broader audience? Because the math on political is that 65% of us are in that middle. You're not alone, by the way.
No. Most people are.
Therefore, where's the party and the language and the way to speak to us that kind of talks to those things we care most about, that we're very drawn to, our emotions. Hey, someday maybe the politicians
maybe
will
someday,
figure this out, but
Well, I want to make one point on that, and then let's talk about how AI can help here, because you use this word interrupting, and I have to tell you, I keep underlining the word interrupting as you're talking, because I'm like, that is really what it's about. It's about interrupting that. So let's flip that to AI. So you're using AI to look at the data, to understand the personas. How do you combine both the quantitative and the qualitative, maybe empathetic, emotional piece together? How does that work?
The saying we have is marketer plus machine, and they should not exist without the other, in our point of view. So what are the insights that make a designer a better designer, a copywriter a better copywriter, a media buyer a more dialed in medium to reach the person? And so all of the machine's job is to give insights to the human being and make those people better at what they do. Kaizen is the Japanese word for better, for good, for better. And I think if we think about that as the backdrop to the power of AI, listen, AI is just math, and machines can do it faster than we can. We have models, Derrick, that use hundreds of thousands of algorithms against trillion data points to give you one answer. Find me a human being that can do that. There isn't one. So let's just do that faster and return human beings to what they can do better, for good.
That makes total sense. And I guess, in a lot of senses, what you're doing is taking personas for customers, and instead of listening to what the customer is saying they want, you're really looking at what they actually do, right? Because we all want something. The guy that wants the Ferrari might be driving a Toyota, and his next car is probably not a Ferrari. If he's got 6 kids and a wife and is a plumber, the probability that he's going to buy that Ferrari, even though that is what he would say in his persona.
He'd talk about the Ferrari, but what he really wants, it's not about the Ferrari. It's about how good I look in the Ferrari. It's about my feelings. And
this was something at Fat Scooters we learned. Yeah. But I had a couple of clients in a row there that were selling products, high-end products into the golf industry. And all of their marketing were beautiful people. And it was Instagram, and it was, these beautiful people riding their products or putting on their shoes, and this gorgeous golf swing kind of thing going on. And that marketing was working. But I think what the shocking part was that in one in particular, that they could have told you that their average customer was 28 years old. We went in and found that the number one first name of a customer for them, this was for a custom golf product, was Harold. So how many guys do you know in your 20s whose first name is Harold? And as they looked through
I know
they
one.
were shocked, right? They were shocked. Henry,
Yeah.
Harold, Seymour. They had like 14 customers named Seymour. I'm like, guys, your customer is a 60-year-old man who doesn't look anything like those, but wants to. Right, that was the key.
Right.
He wants to see the beautiful woman putting on the shoes. He wants to see the super fit guy with the gorgeous golf swing. He doesn't resemble that at all. Right. But he wants to attain that.
Here's where math will lead you. The evidence will lead you that 60-year-old man has feelings that are the same as a 27-year-old woman. So because you got to get to the feeling behind the shell. Here's the shell, the man, woman, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter, of different walks of life. But that diagram I told you about, the Plotnik's wheel of emotion, they exist in everybody. So then let's remove some stereotypes and get to the things that cause us to take action. The emotion that causes us to take action. That's the math and the science and the biology and psychology that fascinates me. But I will tell you and everybody who's listening, it's measurable. You can find it out.
It is a quantitative thing, right? I mean, it is.
Yes. It's a journey, though. It isn't. And here's something it's not. It's not a guarantee. There's a verse that I love. It's test everything, retain what is good.
Yes, that's right.
Test everything, retain what is good.
Retain what is good.
Yes. Retain what's good. Iterate. Euclidean algorithm. Process. What did this teach me? What worked? What didn't? What's next?
I'm so glad you said this. This morning, I was driving, had a doctor's appointment, and I was coming back, and I said, I started thinking about this sort of like the magnitude of change has really evolved in the last 50 years. Could you imagine in the 1960s to say to an executive, you have to have an entirely new product line next year, and you've got to do all like your constant? No. I mean, that was not a thing, but it's getting faster and faster. And we have inertia behind that now where the magnitude of change is increasing exponentially. And I've had Aaron Bear on the show, Exponential Theory, talking about this idea that things are moving so much more quickly today. And I think it's why your point about interruption and disruption was so important. I think bigger organizations are really challenged by interruption because they have plans. They've got their 5-year plan. They know where they're going.
Yep.
And then the whole world changes and it takes them too long to pivot towards that. I had a guest on a few weeks ago that said the 5-week plan has replaced the 5-year plan. And soon it'll be the 5-hour plan. You write a business plan every morning based upon the conditions of that day. Thus the reason you need to rely upon AI to get you there because you can't do it fast enough.
Derrick, wasn't that long ago that we didn't have these, okay?
Yeah.
So look if you want to know something, know it. It's in your hands. There's nothing you can't go know. Okay. But the journey to catalog it, capture it, go from the knowns, identify the unknowns, be on a journey to know them. All of this from the known to the unknown to the known is the journey of a marketer. Interrupt it first, get your attention, but then build a relationship and find out what do I need to know to get Derrick to like me a little more. How about love me a lot more? How about tell others about me? That's the journey of a relationship. That's a journey of a marketer.
So how do you do that with AI in the sense that, does this help you speed up that iterative process because you don't have to do as much A/B testing? You can sort of get, you're going to have some A/B testing, right? But you get to see a lot faster, I would think.
Well, in some cases, we want to avoid the B test because you're wasting money on B if you don't start with these insights. Well, if you're bringing some math to the equation, if I'm just relying on somebody wearing all black with a ponytail to tell me every answer to every design, I think that's a big risk. And by the way, that's founder's dilemma. People that start companies, they're brilliant and genius for starting something, but to scale it doesn't mean the world follows their point of view.
That's right.
You got to go find out others. So here's what we did technically is that we built a big old data lake underneath to capture all of these signals. And on the one end is, just it is analytics. And the best of them is Power BI by Microsoft, or you could do Tableau or the other. There's a bunch of them. But the secret is that all the signals have to live somewhere, because there's no BI without this lake of signals. So we built a platform that automates the workflow from CRM data to persona, from persona to key message, prompts, from key prompts to key imagery. There's a lot of things coming, as you know, about I can either select better images or actually create them on the fly with AI.
Sure.
Then I know the audience, so I know where their eyeballs are. That's your channel. That's creating signals all the way across the path that need to drop in so that I know what creative, what message caused what emotion to take what action. All of that's just sitting in the lake so that my data engineers can go and say, I can do some causation, correlation of all this data. So I can get to the point of saying, this one's the winner, and here's why. But Derrick, it's not the end, because you learn as much from failure in life and in this world. Why didn't that one work? And I feed that back into the algorithms, into the machine learning. Now I have lessons as to why that word, that picture, that radial button wasn't converting. All of that is at the back end of our automated workflow so that we can, again, learn along the way.
I love that you mentioned the data lake, because I don't think a lot of people understand the concept of data lake. I've talked a little bit about structured data in the last few episodes and about how the biggest advantages right now are not with small companies. It's actually with big companies, because they have a data lake and they have structured data that goes back, months, weeks, decades even. So where do you get your data, I guess? Is this, you mentioned phones. I mean, what are you, Chinese? And are you China? And you just didn't tell me here, Kevin? What is this deal going on?
It's a great question. The third-party data industry is very mature. And it goes all the way back to Columbia House CDs and records. And, so that's where it started
Sears,
with catalogs
the old
and
Sears
mail.
card. You think, Sears card, JCPenney card. I mean, that goes way back to the old days. Montgomery wards, all of those things were capturing data in the 80s.
So, but that's just continued to evolve to get more transactional information. What's really unique now is not the structured data, it's the unstructured data, because natural language processing can go and read things. You want to know where the treasure trove of thoughts are? In emails. If you're in any B2B business and there's exchanges from somebody in sales to a customer to the many different personalities within a customer, go look at the emails and find out, where's the word cloud? How often did this word come up? Machines can read that. They can tell you what that is. So the unstructured data married with that just treasure trove of, we are mapped by and large by everything we buy and everything we do by a lot of companies with permission. The third-party data world, it is, but it exists to give you a direction. But then you've got to have an excuse to develop a relationship where real words, real exchanges happen. That can start with a click on an ad. That can start with responding to an email, by the way, with an emoji in the headline, because those perform better. Who'd have thunk that?
Wow.
Yes. A little bit of action in your headline will make a big difference. Picking the right one will make a big difference. I talk and I write with ellipses. Sometimes ellipses
I do too.
in the way you write, or exclamation points. For some people, too many. For some people, none. I mean, so these are all just signals upon signals, and there are trillions a day that we connect to say, how do we believe? What triggers us? What will motivate us? This is the melting pot of behavioral psychology, and it's just something that is should drive marketing and messaging for the future.
So is that tied to me individually? Like, do marketers know?
No.
Me by name? No,
it's
they
not
know
tied
me by an
without
IP address
permission.
or what?
If you opt into anything and we have a relationship and I have your email, yes, it is Derrick.
Okay.
However, the way that the rest of the signals are harvested is because of IP address, the way we're connected to the internet. These devices have a MAID. It's a unique ID. And so we are known by the devices we interact with. But nobody knows in this house whether it's Kevin or Wendy or Michael or Luke. Now, I can model that. I could start to figure out it's more likely to be Wendy than Kevin. But
you're not on the Lululemon site very often, right? Yeah, right.
Well,
I mean, you can start to figure that out, right?
Well, you make assumptions. It's a thesis, right?
Yes.
It's back to the math. I have a thesis that's Wendy versus Kevin. Therefore, do this message versus that one. And absence of click or click, I'm onto something. So it is test everything, retain what is good, move on.
Okay, so your early point, I don't think I totally grasped, and that was that when I see the ad for the mattress, it isn't that devices were listening. It could be that devices were listening if I allowed them to, but it could actually be that my wife and I were someplace else, and I said something about, I've been sleeping terribly. She looked up mattresses in her browser. When we got back to our IP address, the systems associated her search history with mine. Wasn't there a story with Target? I think this was like 7 or 8 years ago where a woman called Target and was like, why do you keep bringing up all this stuff about baby stuff? Nobody's pregnant in my house. And a few weeks later, her 16-year-old daughter finally admitted, I'm pregnant, right? I mean, there was some story in the media. I remember, am I remembering this incorrectly? Or I don't remember
even if you're remembering it incorrectly, I'll tell you the math is true.
Yeah.
Somebody in your social sphere has been looking, thinking, talking about something related to the subject that you're like, wow. How did it know? So this is the world in which we live.
Yeah, I've been really interested in this, the Dunbar numbers for about a year. I've been really addicted to this concept of Dunbar numbers, and that we have 5 people that are our family, 15 people that are our friends, 35 people that we would consider friends, but there's only really 15 that are tight. There's 50 people that are like our network, and then 150 that are, and then 1,500 is the max. And I've been trying to track this through my own network of how do people move in and out. And, you and I, sometimes we don't talk for a year. It's interesting how people move in and out of our networks. And I wonder how marketers can use that information. If you have a party, I have a big event here at my house with about 50 CEOs coming up in a few weeks. Does that, that information, LinkedIn or anybody can now use that information to connect us?
Derrick, the idea, because I've had people challenge and ask me to describe this whole idea of what's going on social networks. It is a party. You're either invited or you're not. But then you go to the party. Are you there to talk to everybody? Nope. Do you talk to the people you know? Yes. Do you gravitate to some of the people or hear other things that are going on? So marketing's one big party. And A, get invited. And then B, gravitate to the people that you know. And then you're often learning things about things you didn't know. So the known and the unknowns are all, whether you're physically at a party, you're going to hear them, or you're in the digital world, you're going to be heard.
It's really funny that you bring this up, because I do believe, I'm even been thinking, just the last couple of days since we've had a chance to catch up, I think about how many of my long-term relationships in my life have come from connections from you. So there are these people that are super connectors as well. And I think it'd be interesting to me if that data lake, can you identify who these people are that are actually, what was the story years ago? I can't remember which book it was. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that talked about influencers, and he talked about how Hush Puppy shoes in New York City, Hush Puppies had become a sort of an obsolete brand. And one DJ in New York City started wearing Hush Puppy shoes. And within a month, sales were just exploded. And then it just stopped, right? It was just one person that affected tens of thousands of other people to go and buy a product just because of their influence. I call that influence density. They had a strong influence density someplace. Is that a measurable thing yet in these?
That one's probably the easier one to measure, because if you can get to Oprah and get her to talk about you on her 10 best products, there's the megaphone. The influencer is a really critical element of scaling your message and your word of mouth marketing. And I would argue you should spend a lot of time trying to figure out who's the influencer and do I have anything authentic to connect us? Because for me to give Oprah the features or benefits of my product or service, it's not going to be the same thing as connecting with her or you, Derrick, on a story, because you're going to remember a story and you're going to repeat the story. And storytelling, since the cavemen on the walls, is what we're all about. That's the end of every marketer's dream.
I think you've touched on this, but you mentioned the word zero-party data the other day when we chatted, and I wrote it down. I think we've been talking about that, right?
We talked earlier about I'm tapped into third-party data, right? That is data that's been around for a while. Zero-party data is you have to have a strategy to get to it. It is the piece of data that you, Derrick, will share with me, and I capture it. It's not floating around out there. Think of it as a way that, whether it's in a one-to-one relationship or you go online and somebody gives you a survey with 3 questions, and you answer one of them and you click. And then you want to see how many people thought like I did.
Oh, yeah, totally. I get suckered into those. Yeah, sure.
Okay. That's because we do want to share our opinions, but only with people we trust. So zero-party data is to get to that trust, that loyalty, that advocacy, and capture one piece of data about you that you offered up to me. Now our relationship just changed. I know how to talk to you differently, and that is not something that the AI will give you. A person will give that to you, and so that's the journey, the roadmap to word of mouth marketing is to get to zero-party data.
In closing here, let's talk a little bit about AI advertising, the type of customers you work with. Is this, are you taking on new customers? I know you've got a great, stable of customers already. Is this something that's relatively exclusive to the organizations you already work with, or are you looking for more business? And what size of business is that? Is this only for the Fortune 100, or what is it? What does it look like?
We're fortunate enough to have Caterpillar and their dealers as our key client, all the way to cookie companies and insurance and banking. The key for us to work with somebody is that they have some data, hopefully 5,000 or more, arguably 10,000 or more people that they know, customers or prospects, because those are the people that start the journey. So it can start quite small. Derrick, recently we've really tuned into the fact that there's another truth about branding and about marketing, is that your culture is your brand. Yes. Marketers can come up with, this is what we believe in, but now show me the people that work for you, and I'll show you if you're going to build a brand, because it is the beliefs and actions of those people that matter to your brand building. So we have started to help some of these dealers who have a lot of job openings go try to find people, new employees, new associates. Their biggest problem is human capital. And by the way, that's probably every company's biggest problem. Yes. Well, how do I go find out the beliefs, motivations, interests, and behaviors of my teammates, associates, employees, so that I can go talk to people that are like them? Same process. But I've now kind of bridged this world of HR to marketing through culture and people. We're all people. We buy, semiconductors. We buy ice cream. We buy services. But we're human beings that believe in things. So whether or not I'm tapping into helping you find more people to build a better culture, build a better brand, or more customers, it's the behaviors. It's their interests. It's their desires. Yeah.
And listen, I think it's funny because you and I have even started talking about this. Right now, anybody that follows me knows I have multiple different podcasts. I think we have 5 more in the queue that we're talking about and working with other potential clients. And the reason we're getting so many is because more and more CEOs are realizing that buyers want to know you, and they want to know the people that work there, and they want to know what you stand for. And the polished website, brochure, leave behind sort of smells like bullshit to many of them.
Yep.
And I had a CEO here in an event a few months back that said to me, I mentioned about podcastology and what I do. And he said, we lost a big deal last year because in the final round, it was down to us and somebody else to do the development work for this bigger company. And he said in the meeting, the CEO said to us, send me a link to your podcast and we'll get back to you. And he said, I don't have a podcast. And he said, the CEO looked at me like I said I didn't have a website. And he was like, it's 2022?
Yeah.
You don't have a okay. Like, we're going to do business with you. Yeah. Like, why would we? Which I think is really telling, because I think we do all see through and smell through the bullshit anymore. And we want that genuine, a lot of these little podcasts I do, or even with smaller organizations, and they get people all the time that call them and are like, hey, I was listening to you on your podcast, and this was a really great point you made, and it made me pick up the phone and want to call you. Wow. Okay. That's a pretty powerful thing. I mean, the fact that, and I have to drop it, right? I've got an Emmy in long form branded content. This is a thing. It's not about short anymore. People don't care about the one line phrase. They want to know you. They want to associate with your brand. They want to tie their persona to the persona and culture that you have as a company. And they cannot do that in just do it. It gets them someplace. It disrupts them, but it doesn't get them there.
It gets to the point that the thing that's hanging off your left shoulder is, I want to know about Kool-Aid. And maybe over my shoulder, you want to learn about Utopia.
I'm fascinated that you said that, because my background is really interesting. This is what I get most comments on. And I do change things. A lot of people might not notice the new lava lamp over there. I've got just the head of my guitar sitting there for a reason, right? People have started to mention, hey, you're playing guitar. Well, I'm not really very good, but people want to connect on a personal level, and they want to see art. They want to, Dominique Wilkins signed a basketball for me and sent it over after he and I had a conversation. They want to see those.
I saw that episode, by the way.
You saw that episode on the TV show. Dominique's a great guy. Yeah. I'm going to be out there in August again. I'm going to have to challenge him to another round of basketball. I think I can take him.
No, you can't.
No. It's really funny because he signed a bunch of stuff for me. And as we were leaving, I said, do you want me to sign something? And he was like, what? And I'm like, I can sign your shirt or whatever. And he's like, dude. And then when I won the Emmy, he did hit me up, and he was like, all right, now you're going to sign something for me. So Dom, Nick, I'm coming, brother. I'll be there in August. I'll take care of you when we're there. But thank you so much, Kevin. This is great.
Derrick, it's not the KISS principle, the KIPS, keep it personal, stupid. That's what you got to do.
I think you're so right. And all of these tools, AI, all that kind of stuff, it is still, although AI can get us closer, there is still an element of connection that you just can't get with AI. And there's a new podcast out, actually, that's done by 2 AIs. It is completely recorded, produced, edited. All of the speakers are AIs. It is not, they did their own show. And it's interesting, but there's just something that's not there that you pick up really quickly. Even though the voices sound like you could tell, I think a 4-year-old could tell it's missing something. And that's the connection point that we really still do have. And I think it is the piece that allows us to hold on a little bit longer before AI takes over everything. Kevin,
Derrick, thank
you so much. If people want to find you, AIAdvertising.com, or find you on LinkedIn too. I know you're popular over there, Kevin Myers.
Thank you very much, and enjoyed the time. Have a great day.
Too. All right, you too.
Keep it personal.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, keep it personal. And thanks, Kevin, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of The Convergence. Please make sure you like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. And we'll see you next time. Well, I got to tell you, it was absolutely fascinating talking with Kevin. I'm staggered by the depth that AI has already incorporated into the marketing world. And I think it's just a matter of time before we see it in everything that we do. So if you're not using AI right now, I'd really encourage you to get on board. Check out the AI resources that are out there for you. They make you significantly more efficient. I use them for my shows. I use them for my shorts. I use them for data analyst work. I use them to help me write and create content and come up with ideas for these shows. It's important that you understand what's happening with AI because it's about ready to affect you in a very radical way. All right. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening on audio, check out our YouTube channel. If you're here on YouTube, go over and subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, I'm Derrick Mains.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.